Imagine a composer who is basically two people at once, a total traditionalist and a complete revolutionary, a guy who literally built the bridge to the music of Bach and Handel, but whose name you've probably never even heard. Well, today, we're going to find him.
So, let's get into the story of Cipriano de Rore. I mean, people back then called him divine. He was at the absolute center of the musical universe. The big question is, how does a guy like that just disappear from the history books?
And this is what's so wild about Rore's whole career. He was a musical chameleon, basically living a double life. On the one hand, he's this guardian of the old school rules, and on the other, a total radical, breaking all of them.
Okay, so first up, let's unpack this idea of a composer's two faces. Because to really get his impact, you have to understand this paradox. It's the key to everything.
So Rore was from Flanders, which was kind of like the Silicon Valley for musicians back in the Renaissance. Seriously, all the best talent came from there. But he really made his career in Italy, playing the high-stakes game of pleasing wealthy patrons. And he was good at it. He ended up becoming the head of music for Duke Ercole II d'Este at the super glamorous court of Ferrara.
And this table just lays it all out, right? You can really see his split musical personality. For his church music, his sacred stuff, he was all about being backward-looking. It was about formal perfection, tradition. But then for his secular music, these madrigals written for private parties with aristocrats, he was a total trailblazer, all about psychological drama and pushing the limits of emotion in music.
All right, let's dig into his public face first. This is all about mastering the old rules. And you'll see, this wasn't just him paying his dues. No, it was a super smart career move that gave him the perfect cover to do his crazy experiments.
You see, back in the 16th century, the whole music world followed a set of rules we now call the Prima Prattica, or the first practice. Think of it as the official conservative style, especially for church music. And in this style, the music itself, its beautiful, complex architecture, was king. The words were kind of secondary.
Right. So in his big, formal masses and motets, Rore wasn't trying to be an innovator at all. He was actually doing the complete opposite. He was proving he was the real deal, the legitimate heir to that great musical tradition, by basically giving a shout-out to the master of the last generation, the legendary Josquin des Prez.
I mean, he'd use these super old-school techniques, like this one thing where you create a melody from the vowels in your boss's name. It's like a musical puzzle. So by doing this, he wasn't just writing pretty music. He was flexing. He was showing everyone he had the credentials. This locked down his fancy job, and more importantly, it built this firewall of respectability around him. And believe me, he was going to need it for what he was doing in his other life.
Okay, now for the good stuff. His secret identity, the radical innovator. Because while he's playing it safe in public, in private, he's totally rewiring the Italian madrigal and changing the course of music forever. So, what was his secret weapon? It was a technical thing called note Nere, which literally means black notes. Now, I know, that doesn't sound super thrilling, but trust me, this was a massive shift. It was like changing the DNA of musical rhythm itself.
Okay, so here's what he did. It's actually pretty simple. Traditional music was built on this slow, flowing half-note beat. What Rore did was switch the main beat to a faster quarter note. It's like he doubled the resolution of the music. And by doing that, he suddenly gave himself twice as many little moments to add tiny expressive details.
And that one change, it was everything. It gave him this incredibly rich, new palette to paint with. For the first time, he could make the music sound like a real human voice delivering poetry. You know, with all its natural pauses and rushes and little hesitations. It was a game changer.
And this brand new rhythmic freedom, well, it unlocked the door to Rore's biggest, most important contribution. This was the idea that music shouldn't just exist to be beautiful. No, its real job was to serve the emotional power of the words.
He got so good at what we call word painting, and it was almost ridiculously literal. I mean, if a poem said harsh steps, you'd hear the music literally clomping down a scale. If the text talked about sighs, he'd actually write rests, little silences, into the music so you could hear the singers take a breath just like they were sighing. It's incredible.
But it went way beyond just clever tricks. He would intentionally use notes that sounded wrong, that were jarring, or he'd break the harmonic rules of the time just to express a feeling, like rough ways or sheer exhaustion. He literally weaponized music theory to create an emotional impact.
And you can see him getting bolder and bolder over time. In his early career, he set poems by the classic poet Petrarch to music. Get this, 38 times.
But then, after 1550, he pretty much drops him cold. He starts looking for new poetry, stuff that was more dramatic, more emotionally raw, something that could really push his new expressive style to the absolute edge.
So, where does this all lead? What's the ultimate legacy here? Well, all these wild innovations, they weren't just a footnote in music history. They were the very beginning of a whole new musical era. And hey, don't just take my word for it. Decades after Rore died, the next huge musical revolutionary, the one and only Claudio Monteverdi, was in a bit of a public spat, defending his own radical new music. And who did he point to as the OG, the original innovator who started it all? He named the divine Cipriano de Rore. This new style, the one Rore basically invented and Monteverdi perfected, got a name, the Seconda Prattica, the second practice. And its main idea flipped everything on its head. It was simple. First the words, then the music. The emotional drama of the text was now the boss, and the music had to do what it said.
And you can see it so clearly here. Rogere is that crucial link. He's the bridge. His work in the 1550s was the direct blueprint for what Monteverdi would later define and name, and that, in turn, blossomed into the dramatic, emotional, over-the-top music of the Baroque era, the age of giants like Bach and Handel.
Think about it. His late music had these clear textures so you could actually understand the words. It had bold, new harmonies and these radical, stormy rhythms. He basically laid out the entire blueprint for the music of the future. It was all there. So what does this all tell us? Cipriano de Rore proves that sometimes the biggest revolutions don't come from just tearing everything down. Sometimes they're started by people who master the old rules so completely that they earn the right to break them. And it kind of makes you wonder, right? What other hidden architects are out there right now, quietly building the foundations for the art we'll all be talking about tomorrow?